here's a Scared for Real's Legacy Special.
Hey, Chris O'Neill.
Adam Perry.
One of the most iconic films of all time has to be King Kong.
Without a doubt.
91 years old this year. This was the original kaiju, if you will. Before Godzilla, there was King Kong. It dubbed the King of Beasts from its inception. Over time, it would be Robert Armstrong's character in the movie, The Eighth Wonder of the World.
Right.
This was just such an amazing film. First film appearance, I don't think there was ever like a major monster before King Kong.
What do you consider a major monster? Because we already had Frankenstein by this time.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about like a beast kind of monster. Frankenstein was just a dead man coming back to life, in essence. This was like a giant beast gorilla monster. There had never been a kaiju type creature like this in a movie.
I don't believe there was, which makes it so groundbreaking.
I know. Fritz Lang experimented with some mythological creatures in some of his movies over in Germany, but nothing of this magnitude.
No. Everything about King Kong, the way it was shot, the stop motion animation, using the different techniques of filming this movie was so groundbreaking. It can't even be described what this movie did for cinema.
Yeah, this King Kong character was conceived, crafted by Marion C. Cooper. Now, in the original film, the character's name is Kong. It wasn't like King Kong.
Yeah.
It's just Kong. So it was a name given to him by the inhabitants of Skull Island. They were out there somewhere in the middle of the Indian Ocean.
Right.
It was off the charts except for this Norwegian guy that it's hinted to in the movie that's rescued and described the land. It was transcribed, and somehow Robert Armstrong's character Denham had the whole thing laid out. But yeah, Marion C. Cooper became fascinated by gorillas when he was only 6 years old.
Oh, wow.
That's where the spark, I don't know if he crafted it at that age, probably not. But in 1899, he was given a book called Explorations and Adventures in Equatorial Africa. Now, and chronicled the adventures of this one, I think the author of the book, in various encounters with natives and wildlife. Cooper really was just fascinated with the stories involving the gorillas in particular. His depiction of a particular gorilla known for its extraordinary size that the natives described as invincible and the king of the African forest. When this particular doctor in the book and some natives encountered a gorilla later, he described it as a quote-unquote hellish dream creature that was half man, half beast. So Cooper really, this kind of definitely followed when he was making movies. While filming The Four Feathers in Africa, which is actually a really great movie, he came into contact with a family of baboons, which gave him the idea to make a picture about primates. A year later, when he got to RKO, Marion Cooper really wanted to film a quote-unquote terror gorilla picture. As the story was being fleshed out, Cooper wanted to make his gorilla giant size. He stated that the idea of Kong initially fighting airplanes was, I guess it came from him seeing a plane flying over the big New York insurance building, which was like the tallest building back then. Remember that? I don't know how well you know your New York history. But he came up with the ending before the rest of the story. So literally Kong dying, falling off the building. Spoiler alert in case you haven't seen this movie, over 90 years old now. But yeah, he started backwards and moved from there.
Interesting.
Yeah, because most stories don't start that way.
No.
He came up with the idea of the ending, and he was also influenced by Douglas Burden's accounts. I don't know if I'd never read it, but the Komodo dragon. He wanted to pit his terror gorilla against dinosaur-sized versions of like the Komodo dragon. So hence the T-Rex and all the pterodactyl and all that kind of stuff that he would end up fighting. on Skull Island.
Yeah.
So when designing King Kong, this was just, it's amazing how they designed King Kong. He described Kong in a 1930 memo. His hands and feet have the size and strength of steam shovels. I guess his girth is that of a steam boiler. These are from his notes, Adam.
Yep.
A monster with the strength of 100 men, but more terrifying is the head. Bloodshot eyes, jagged teeth set under a thick mat of hair. half beast, half human again. So Willis O'Brien created an oil painting depicting the giant menacing gorilla, a jungle heroine, and a hunter for Cooper. However, when it came time for Willis and this Marcel Delgado, who kind of sculpt the animation model, Cooper decided to backpedal on the half-human look. And he was just adamant that Kong be a gorilla. I mean, this guy's been fascinated with gorillas. So let's go all out and make a big giant gorilla like he always wanted to. So O'Brien, on the other hand, wanted him to be almost human-like to gain audience empathy, told Delgado to make that ape almost human. Cooper laughed at the end result, saying it looked like a cross between a monkey and a man with very long hair. So, I mean, they went through this, and on December 22nd, 1931, Cooper got the dimensions of a bull gorilla from the American Museum of Natural History. And I guess he told Willis this is what he wanted. That's exactly what he wanted. When the final model was created, it had the basic look of a gorilla, but somehow retained some human-like qualities. For example, Delgado streamlined the body by removing those distinctive paunch and rump of a gorilla. O'Brien, he had some of the characteristics of an earlier creature he had created for the silent movie, the Dinosaur and the Missing Link. And of course, that movie you probably can't find anywhere.
No.
But I guess King Kong wasn't the first one, but the first popular one that still exists. So when it came time to film, Cooper agreed that Kong should walk upright at times, especially in the big city sequences. Mm-hmm. So he looked definitely intimidating in New York City, but Miriam C. Cooper said he was very fond of a strong, hard-sounding words that started with the letter K. So Komodo, Kodak. So when Cooper was envisioning his giant terror gorilla idea, he wanted to literally capture a real gorilla from the Congo and have it fight like a real Komodo dragon. So he was kind of like Carl Denham.
Yeah.
He wanted to make his own monster picture by using real animals. So Cooper was just really fascinated. So the scenario of the Komodo dragon fighting the big giant gorilla monster turned into the T-Rex scene.
Yeah.
So I unfortunately we don't see a Komodo dragon replica in the movie.
No, but we get the T-Rex.
Yeah, and that was pretty intense as well. But another thing, Cooper, once he got to RKO, he was really into Edgar Wallace's work as a novelist. So he was contracted to write the first draft of a screenplay, which was known as The Beast. So that's why Edgar Wallace gets some screen credit there. So the executives were unimpressed, though, with the bland title. This is where David O. Selznick comes in. Mr. David O. Selznick, the guy, tyrannical, a lot of people called him, but his legacy after King Kong included Gone with the Wind and Rebecca, 2 Best Picture winners.
Right.
So Selznick pretty much got his way. So David O. Selznick suggested Jungle Beast as the film's new title, but, well, Cooper wasn't impressed with that. So here we go, going back and forth. Now, he liked the mystery word aspect of Kong's name and that the film should carry the name of the leading mysterious, romantic, savage creature of the story, such as Dracula, Frankenstein. So RKO sent a memo to Cooper suggesting the titles Kong, King of Beasts, Kong the Jungle King, and Kong the Jungle Beast. So there you have it. Those are between him and Selznick's proposed titles. As time went on, Cooper would eventually just name the story Kong, while Ruth Rose was writing the final version of the screenplay because David O. Selznick thought that audiences would think the film with the one-word title Kong would be mistaken as a docudrama. Like, I guess there had been some films that were released like Grass and Chang.
Oh.
So he added King to Kong's name in order to differentiate it. So there you go. David Selznick is the guy who came up with King Kong. And such history is made. So in his first appearance in King Kong, he was a giant prehistoric ape. It was gorilla-like, but he had a vaguely humanoid look and at times walked upright. Kong also possessed semi-human intelligence, and you see that throughout the movie.
Yeah.
Especially the kinky scenes, which were censored. But Kong's sizes changed drastically throughout the course of the film. Merian Cooper envisioned Kong as being 40 to 50 feet tall. The animator and his crew built the models. Sets, they scaled, they were like 18 feet. I guess on Skull Island, he was 18 feet tall. And then he was rescaled to 24 feet in New York. So Cooper kept playing around with Kong sizes, though, even though there was the 18 feet tall one and the 24-foot tall one. Mm-hmm. So he directed the special effects sequences by manipulating the sizes of the miniatures and the camera angles. He made Kong appear a lot larger than O'Brien wanted, even as large as 60 feet in some sequences. So there you have it. Cooper literally said in an interview, "I was a great believer in constantly changing Kong's height to fit the settings and the illusions." And I guess it broke rules that O'Brien and his animators ever had worked with, because, I mean, he's different in almost every single shot. If you watch it, I don't know how many times you've seen King Kong.
Oh, I've seen it 100 times.
Yeah, same here. You could definitely tell there's at least 3 or 4 different Kongs in the movie.
Right. Yep.
There literally is. But he felt, according to Cooper, he felt confident that if the scenes moved with the excitement and beauty, the audience would accept any height that fitted into the scene. So, example, he is definitely right on this one. If Kong had only been 18 feet high on the top of the Empire State Building, he would have been lost like a little bug. So he constantly juggled the heights of the trees, dozens of other things. The one essential thing, he said in this interview, was to make the audience enthralled with the character of Kong so that they wouldn't notice or care. 40 feet tall, 18 feet high. So there you have it. So the Kong bust made for the film was built in scale with a 40-foot ape. With a full-sized hand of Kong was built in scale with a 70-foot. Meanwhile, RKO's promotional materials listed Kong's official height as 50 feet.
Wow.
So there you have it. I mean, the special effects were great. Imagine Ray Harryhausen watching this movie. And he actually, if you listen to the commentary on the special editions, Ray Harryhausen adds a lot to it.
Well, he was a protege of Brian.
Right. He literally worked under him.
Yeah.
But just imagine maybe you're into makeup, maybe you're into creating creatures, whatever. You sit there and watch King Kong in 1933.
Right.
Nothing had ever been like that on screen before.
Yeah, I can't talk enough about the importance of the effects in this movie.
Oh man,
and what they did to the film
cinema.
Industry. They changed cinema
forever. Yeah,
and you know what? And this is especially in an era now where everything's computer.
Yeah.
And I hate that. I really there's need for CGI in some things, but in 1933 to create this world with stop motion animation, matte paintings, rear projection, and miniatures, and to have it look as good as it did and still hold up to this day, it's just oh my god! And it unfortunately, practical effects and it's a dying art now, and it's really sad when you see, especially when you watch a movie like King Kong, to see the potential, of everything. And where would movies be without King Kong?
I know. And have you ever seen this on a big screen?
Yes.
Oh,
yes. Yeah.
It's like a whole new experience watching this movie on the big screen. Yep. So many little details that they go unseen, just like every other big screen movie. It's just, you have to see it on the big screen. Hopefully you can. But the visual effects were just out of this world. And again, nothing has ever been like it since. Ray Harryhausen, obviously, his stuff is his effects are the only things comparable to King Kong.
Right.
Because he worked right underneath these brilliant guys, But now, one of the most interesting things about King Kong, obviously, biggest opening ever. I think it was like 90,000 at the time.
Yeah.
Right. The Great Depression. It was just a huge, no opening had ever there was never a movie like it. Selznick was really good at like finding these movies and really, making them big hits. Still to this day, no movie has sold more tickets than Gone with the Wind.
Wow.
No movie. I don't think any movie will ever top that. But so it's interesting. Like King Kong, one of the biggest American movie icons of all time. However, King Kong's intellectual property status, it's been questioned since its creation. I don't know if you've read about all of the problems.
No, I haven't.
The court battles and allegations. The rights to the character have always been split up with no single exclusive rights holder. Isn't that something?
Interesting. Yeah.
You would think, okay, RKO owns it. Well, they do somewhat. But.
Right.
So when Marion C. Cooper created King Kong, he assumed that he owned the character, which he had conceived in 1929 outright. Cooper maintained that he had only licensed the character to RKO for the initial film and sequel, but had otherwise owned it. Well, in 1935, Cooper began to feel something was amiss. According to what I'm reading here, he was trying to get a Tarzan versus King Kong project.
Interesting.
Where Toho would definitely take control of the monster universe because they kept pitting Godzilla against whatever.
Yeah.
Everything and everyone. Selznick suggested the project to Cooper, I guess, trying to get Tarzan versus King Kong, where he assumed management of the company. I guess it was for Pioneer Pictures, okay? But Selznick suggested the project to Cooper. The flurry of legal activity over using the Kong character that followed, Pioneer Pictures became like this. It was one of the first big independent companies out there. Mm-hmm. They tried to access properties that RKO felt that there was no longer automatic. So gave Cooper pause as he came to realize that he might not have full control over this after all. Fast forward to 1962. So after Son of Kong, which is it's not like the worst sequel I've ever seen, but unless you're Akira Kurosawa, Alfred Hitchcock, or Ingmar Bergman, you probably shouldn't direct more than one movie a year. Because the Son of Kong, did you ever watch that?
Bits and pieces.
Yeah, it was badly rushed, unfortunately. Yeah. But there was not another Kong movie until 1962. Yes, there was Mighty Joe Young in the late 40s. But years later, in 1962, Marion C. Cooper found out that RKO was licensing the character through John Beck. Now, John Beck was the American negotiator with Toho. Mm-hmm. Okay? So you had King Kong versus Godzilla. Cooper had assumed his rights were unaccessible and he was really not into this project, to say the least.
Yeah.
So a year later, he filed a lawsuit to enjoin distribution of the movie against John Beck, as well as Toho and Universal. I guess that was the copyright holder at the time, because RKO went into Universal because of the whole studio collapse.
Yep.
So Cooper discovered that RKO had also profited from licensed products featuring the King Kong character, model kits, and I'm sure there were some toys at the time and everything like that. Cooper literally stated in a letter to Robert Bendick, "My hassle is about King Kong. I created the character long before I came to RKO and have always believed I retain subsequent picture rights and other rights. I sold to RKO the right to make the one original picture and later Son of Kong, but that was all." I would have loved to seen the fine print because apparently they didn't agree with him on that one.
Right.
So Cooper, his legal team, they offered up various documents to bolster the case that, Marion C. Cooper owned King Kong, and it was only for 2 films. So many people vouch for, even David O. Selznick, the guy everyone claims is a tyrant and everything like that, he vouched for him. He had written a letter stating the rights of this are owned by Mr. Marion C. Cooper. Cooper, however, lost key documents through the years. He discovered these papers were missing after he returned from his military service during World War II. So, where did these documents go? It's such key, informal yet binding letter. The then president of the RKO Studios, and I guess all of these binding letters confirmed that Cooper had only licensed to the character for the 2 movies and nothing more. But no letters, no proof. That's awful. It seemed Cooper's rights were relegated to the novelization that he had copyrighted. He was able to make a deal for a paperback reprint, I guess. Cooper's lawyer had received a letter from John Beck's lawyer that stated, "For the sake of the record, I wish to state that I am not in negotiation with you or Mr. Cooper or anyone else to define Mr. Cooper's rights in respect to King Kong. His rights are well defined and they are non-existent except for certain limited publication rights." Whew. Wow.
Damn. Yeah.
So this was quite the drama, you know. But the rights over the character did not flare up again until 1975, when
we get the remake.
We get the awful remake. I could not get into this movie. I'm a huge Jeff Bridges fan.
Yep.
Jessica Lange is a great actress. Dino De Laurentiis. I did not care for this film. But yeah, we got a King Kong remake. And I guess De Laurentiis came up with $200,000 to buy the remake rights from RKO. When Universal got wind of this, they filed a lawsuit against RKO, claiming they had a verbal agreement. So yeah, Cooper is out of it at this point. But yeah, so a bunch of lawsuits against RKO. I guess eventually RKO countersued Universal as well as De Laurentiis, filing a lawsuit claiming interference. Colonel Richard Cooper, Marion's son and now head of the Cooper estate, jumped into the fray as well.
Wow.
Isn't it something, all this drama? So during all these battles, Universal discovered that the copyright of the Lovelace novelization had expired without renewal, thus making the King Kong story a public domain one. Universal argued that they should be able to make a movie based on the novel without infringing on anyone's copyright because the characters in the story were in the public domain with the context of the public domain story. This is for, just the articles I'm reading about here.
Right.
So Colonel Richard Cooper, the son of Marion Cooper, filed a cross-claim against RKO, claiming that while the publishing rights to the novel had not been renewed, his estate still had control over the plot story of King Kong. I guess there was a 4-day bench trial in L.A. The judge made the final decision, gave his verdict in 1976, affirming that the King Kong novelization and serialization were indeed in the public domain and Universal could make its movie. Obviously, if they ruled in Cooper's favor, it wouldn't have been made.
Right.
Which I wish they would have. I don't know. Did you watch the 1976 remake?
I did. And one thing I'm going to bring up that should be celebrated about the 1976 movie is this is our first exposure to Rick Baker.
Yeah, he did the makeup work.
He did all the King Kong animatronics. He wore the King Kong suit.
Yeah, that's right. He was in the suit.
He built, by request, a 40-foot animatronic.
Right.
Ape.
Yeah.
Again, I will go on forever about practical effects. And, this, it's what I love most about horror movies is learning about these effects and how they were done. Rick Baker is the master. Next year after this, he will win his first Oscar with American Werewolf in London. So and go on to win 7 more after that.
I was going to say he won 8 Academy Awards. I think he won a couple of honorary ones, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Too.
So again, this is basically his. He did work on The Exorcist with.
Yes, a little bit.
A little bit. He was apprenticing.
Dick Smith, right?
Yeah, he's apprenticed with Dick Smith,
who would go on to do Taxi Driver. I had to make a plug for Scorsese movie.
Yeah, and again, he So he works on The Exorcist, and again, this is really his first mainstream project.
And Dick Smith himself is a legend.
And incredible,
too.
yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, so I mean, he couldn't have learned from anyone better.
Yeah.
And Rick Baker would go on, his ape animatronics and his ape costumes would become legendary. Yes. For a while, it's really what he was known for.
Right.
Because he does end up doing a movie about apes, and it's all animatronic apes, but they look real.
Right.
So yeah, again, I could talk forever about Rick Baker. He's one of the all-time greatest effects men of all time, and this is his debut in 1970, and that should be celebrated, even if the movie is not the greatest.
Well, I mean, I think I think I'd rate it. I've never seen all of King Kong Escapes, which was the follow-up, Toho's follow-up.
Yeah.
The suit. Let's put it this way: Baker's stuff in King Kong and King Kong Lives Again or whatever. Yeah. Amazing compared to the Toho suit.
Sure.
People laugh at the Toho King Kong suit.
Yeah, I mean, it looked silly.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so
you have, obviously, the Dino De Laurentiis King Kong was a huge success. 10 years later, you had King Kong Lives, which it's like the ending was like Spartacus. Did you get the Spartacus vibe with that?
Yeah.
It's like, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Kubrick again.
Yeah. And again, going back to the 76 remake, I do like the idea that they did try to like amp it up bigger with the King Kong being on top of the trade centers.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
it just dragged.
It did drag. Yep.
It was just such I thought it was boring. I'm not faulting Rick Baker's work.
Oh, no.
His stuff was amazing. And I just wish I liked the movie better because I like Jeff Bridges.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Jeff Bridges fan. I like Jessica Lange. Just the movie was just boring.
And that's just it, when you're talking about Rick Baker, like he's done some flop movies, but his work in it was a perfect example is the Wolfman remake in 2010. Ugh. His Wolfman that he did on Benicio del Toro is out of this world. And it won him an Oscar.
Yeah.
And the movie
Oscar, I think.
And the movie was a total flop.
Oh yeah, big time. So King Kong would lay dormant for almost 20 years. Then Peter Jackson revived it. He was fresh off of his Lord of the Rings. So I'm going to remake King Kong, which I think this King Kong is a way step above the Dino De Laurentiis movie.
Right.
Huge. And there was a lot of respect and homage to the original 1933 film. A lot.
Mm-hmm.
It just, again, over 3 hours long.
3 hours long.
Yeah, a movie, and then they had a director's cut, which made it almost 3.5 hours long.
Yeah.
It's a solid movie. The visual effects were great, but it's just...
but it also kind of, it hurts me a little bit because of how important the original one was to physical and practical effects. This one's all CGI.
Yes, performance capture.
Yeah, it's all CGI. So
yeah,
again, and this is just my personal. I understand there's a lot of things. I understand budgetary reasons for CGI, and I understand. But to me, I'll take a practical effect any day, over CGI. Again, I joke about it, but when I go on tirades about like CGI blood, when since the dawn of theater, you can read food. There's water.
There's literally theater blood.
Yeah, there's no reason to fake this,
right?
But so yeah, I mean, like that's like the most. Other than it being just long, and I mean, it was a good movie, but again, as someone who loves these movies for their effects, to know that the original played such an impact on practical effects, and to have it be remade in CGI,
well,
is tough.
Well, then fast forward to 2017, you have Kong Skull Island.
Yep.
Which started off another multiverse of movies. This time there's no performance capture. It's all computer.
Yep.
All computer.
And you can tell.
Oh, you can tell, definitely. So you have Kong Skull Island, and then you have Godzilla versus Kong. And that was one thing, talking about Godzilla just for a second. You had a guy in a suit in the Toho Studios. That was one thing they never... they kind of had ebbs and flows with Godzilla, but Godzilla running... Yeah. Like literally running. Godzilla didn't run.
No.
He stomped.
Yeah.
And it just loses a lot of the human aspect of it. But,
right.
Before Godzilla, though, before Toho Studios, there was King Kong, RKO Pictures, and you had a pretty strong female lead. I mean, at the time, female characters were kind of, to have a character like, Fay Wray's character was just, Anne was not someone you push around.
No.
She was very strong.
Yeah. We talk a lot about the importance of the strength of female characters.
Yes. And she, Anne was very strong, and she could think for herself. Mm-hmm. She does fall in love with the stereotypical brute first mate.
Right.
I think that's the only cheesy dialogue. And I think I love you. Bruce Cabot, who would go on to be a bad guy in a lot of Westerns. But no, there was just something special about King Kong. I mean, not only the visual effects, but the story and everything about it was just perfect.
Yeah. And
you look at the Academy Awards and not a single nomination for King Kong. And how can we forget about Max Steiner's score? Mm-hmm. This was like the first real score for a motion picture.
Right.
And what a memorable score.
Yeah.
Every theme in the movie, there's a theme for everything in the movie.
Yeah.
Anne has her own theme. Kong has his. It's just one of the best. And Max Steiner would go on to do Casablanca and so many other great films. I mean, his music is such an important part of King Kong.
The Academy Awards stomach our horror movies.
Yeah, well,
even back in the day,
Yeah, it's a shame too, because I mean that you think of any other movie in 1933, this is the first film that comes to mind.
Yeah, exactly, and and King Kong's impact just transcends to today. I mean, there's even a floor in the Empire State Building modeled after King Kong. It looks like he's actually coming into the room to get you. It's a photo op. It's really cool.
Right.
Universal, the theme parks, they have their King Kong. I mean,
because RKO sold the rights to Universal. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, like the theme parks still have some version of a King Kong ride. Mm-hmm. I mean, you want to talk about, when the Universal Studios opened in Florida in 1990, I mean, their biggest attraction was Kongfrontation, which was a 30-foot animatronic King Kong.
Right.
And they had it on the backlot tour for years and years and years. And both of those have unfortunately gone away, but been replaced by a Skull Island attraction with still life-size animatronic King Kong. Its legacy and impact is just so cool. And
I know. I mean, the Beatles, Yellow Submarine.
King Kong's in it. Yeah.
Yeah, The Simpsons, they have like an episode. Even the movie Chicken Little.
Yeah.
A scene parodying King Kong. I mean, Frank Zappa, the Kinks. Another legacy, Adam, that you may or not be familiar with. Imagine having sets from the actual movie King Kong.
Oh, yeah.
They don't exist anymore.
I know. You can get me on another rant about movie sets and preserving what I feel is history.
Well, Rosebud the Sleigh, Steven Spielberg was able to buy that for millions of dollars, so he has that. Imagine having like the huge gate from King Kong. Wouldn't that have been awesome? Gone with the Wind, another David O. Selznick production. At least it went out with a bang. The burning of Atlantis scene in Gone with the Wind, it was shot long before the film actually started. You literally get the doubles of the two actors. But the purpose was to burn down old sets to create the new set. So that burning of Atlantis sequence, huge gate from King Kong is in there.
Oh, it's heartbreaking.
It really is heartbreaking.
Yeah, it reminds me of what Universal did about 10 years ago with Stage 28, which held the original set of the Paris Opera from Phantom of the Opera.
Oh, yeah. I remember that. Okay.
Now, according to Universal, they deconstructed the set, and it's in storage somewhere, but no one has seen or know where this is. But they basically tore down this iconic soundstage. It was the first ever steel reinforced soundstage ever created for a Minions ride. I mean, and it was literally a spot that should have been protected by the Historical Society. That goes back to what we always say, there's always a convenient fire or something when it comes to these things. Same thing with the Notre Dame Cathedral. There was a convenient fire that took that thing out. So it breaks my heart to hear when iconic sets like these that should be preserved and enjoyed for history get just tossed to the side like they're nothing. Now, I understand that, logistically and financially, it's just part of how it goes, but still, you're talking such a important movie like King Kong, and to have the sets just disregarded like that.
I'm sure some of the Gone with the Wind stuff went up in the flames.
Oh, sure.
It's terrible.
The fact that the Little Europe set on the back lot in the Court of Gestures still exists in Universal Studios blows my mind. So, thankfully we still got that. But yeah, I hate seeing history destroyed. And unfortunately, when it comes to dollar signs and businesses, it's a lot easier to destroy than preserve.
At least it went out in a blaze of glory.
Yeah.
We could go on and on and on and on. There was even, Donkey Kong. Come on.
Yeah.
And Nintendo.
It's King Kong.
This is a movie that is essential to me. I have a list of 250 films. This film is always on there. I watch it every year. I just love rewatching this. It's just, I get excited.
Yeah.
Rewatching this movie.
If you're any sort of, fan of cinema, special effects, horror, this is a staple for you.
Just plain good old stories. This is a great story.
It's Beauty and the Beast.
Yes. Even though Denham is the one that's the bad guy in the movie. I will swear that Carl Denham is the true villain of King Kong. He really is.
Yeah.
He's so obsessed, and it just goes into human nature and how human nature, things they don't understand, things they get obsessed and passionate about, it does have effect on everyone. Mm-hmm. And that's what the movie shows. Denham is the true villain of King Kong. He can't get past himself, and he destroys something that really wasn't a bad being at all. Kong was just doing what he knew how to do, and he was pissed that he was brought out of his home. Mm-hmm. He was taken from his home.
Yeah.
Literally taken. When he dies, it's awful.
Right.
It's heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
It's like he didn't deserve to die.
Mm-hmm.
Just bring him back.
The movies keep bringing them back.
Yes.
Because we have yet another Kong movie coming out later this year, correct?
Yeah. Well, actually, in a couple of months, Kong, Godzilla, Empire,
Alrighty.
Yeah. Where King Kong and Godzilla are both running.
Interesting. This will be fun to watch.
Yes, it's fun to watch King Kong movies. And the thing is, Kong has a longer film legacy, but there's less movies just because they just have a hard time. Of course, all the battles, of who owns Kong. All that aside, and that's a funny thing. Universal owns some of the rights to King Kong, but yet home video, Warner Brothers bought all the RKO, so Warner Brothers owns the home video rights to King Kong.
It's crazy. It's such a...
Along with Citizen Kane and all the other RKO movies.
Such a financial mess.
It is, but I'm glad we actually have, whether it's Blu-ray, I don't think King Kong, the original King Kong, has a 4K release yet. Hopefully that gets remedied soon. But yeah, King Kong, definitely a film, needs no introduction, but we talk about it anyways. Let us know what your thoughts about King Kong. I was a little boy watching King Kong. I'm sure you were, Adam, too. Yeah. I was like 5 or 6 when I watched King Kong. Tell us about your King Kong experiences. Comment below. Reach out to us through Facebook, Twitter, X, or Instagram. We're Scared for Reals.